Mic check, 1 2 1 2 3.
Welcome to the first Sunday edition of The Sweat for the 2019 NFL season. We'll have you covered with all the news and strategy you need here at our DK headquarters in Boston. But we're also out in full force at Pilsner House in Hoboken, New Jersey, celebrating the kickoff of the NFL season at the DraftKings Kickoff Bash. All right, folks, I'm Jessie Coffield, your host for this morning's festivities. We're taking you right up to kickoff with analysis on top DFS and Sportsbook plays. You'll hear from the likes of Pat Mayo, Levitan and Mike Francesa. Plus, we'll check in with Adam Kaufman from the Kickoff Bash in Hoboken. We here at DraftKings, though, are super excited for today. So we're asking you to show us how excited you are. Show us how you're getting ready for today for a shot at $500 DK dollars. Follow our Twitter handle at @TheSweatDK. Look for this picture of how excited we at DraftKings are for football. Then reply with your own photo and tell us how you'll #MakeItRain. We'll announce the winner later on in the show. But let's get this party started and bring in our NFL panel. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and the fantasy girl herself, Rosalie Michaels. Time for NFL Spin Move, guys. Putting a DraftKings spin on the top news in the NFL. All right, let's get things started here. Of course, Antonio Brown is a Patriot. That's the big news. Not relevant to this week's slate, but highly relevant to some futures. Now, AB is plus 1,000 to be the NFL receptions leader. He was plus 2,000 with Oakland. Jeff, given the way he ended up on the Pats, will he survive long enough to make that a possibility? Nope. Need some volume from Jeff, so let's go to Reed.
Yeah, this is a great way to start. Let's just keep Jeff muted the entire time. It's fantastic. Let's get to Antonio Brown. I don't think so. I think even with a huge upgrade from Derek Carr to Tom Brady, I still think with Antonio Brown, there's some question marks. We just don't know. This is unprecedented territory with AB. You like the situation and where he's at in New England. That organization is fantastic. But give me someone like Mike Evans. Mike Evans at plus 1,600. We know what this offense or can be with Bruce Arians, where he's been in the past. And Mike Evans has been doing it essentially for the last few years. Over 1,500 yards receiving last year. Even though he has a little stomach bug, I like him season long in terms of that prop.
Jeff, plus 1,000 for Antonio Brown. I think we have volume for you now.
Good. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, Antonio Brown, I mean, obviously it's a big story. He probably might have, is pretty happy about where he ended up and all this craziness. But, I mean, as far as looking at him as a reception leader, I don't really think that's something that you need to consider. It's not that he's going to not be a viable fantasy play when he's on the Patriots, but you just look at that team, how deep they are in targets. James White led this team in receptions last year. It's the team that likes to use the running backs, likes to use guys like Julian Edelman in the middle of the field on short to intermediate routes. I don't think Antonio Brown is necessarily going to have a big enough market share that he's going to push for that league lead in receptions. His odds of it doing it on the Patriots probably go up, but I just feel like there's too many bodies there. So, like Reed said, looking other places for reception leaders is probably the smart idea.
We should keep a ticker. How many times we say Julian Edelman in place of Edelman, and then how many times we say San Diego Chargers in place of the Los Angeles Chargers?
Okay, Rosalie, do you like AB? You looking elsewhere?
I like AB. I mean, if the question is whether or not he's going to catch that reception lead, the answer is no. Jerry Rice, he played till he was 42. And after this past week, can any of us say that Antonio Brown will play till he's 42 in order to get close to that number? The answer is no. He's not going to get close to that number. I mean, the points for Antonio Brown in New England, the Patriots are a much more efficient offense. Tom Brady is a much better quarterback, as Reed said, much better over Derek Carr. But against him is the Patriots are not going to get the ball to him simply because he's Antonio Brown. He's not the star on the team anymore. So, I mean, if they're going to get the ball to the best option on the play, if that's AB, great. If it's not, then Tom Brady's not going to force the ball to him. So he doesn't catch Jerry Rice, doesn't come close to that on that. And the guys already answered the fantasy aspect of it. But I'm glad to see Antonio Brown in a situation where hopefully, he gets the leadership that he needs.
Okay, let's move on to games that are impacted for this week. The Rams are in Carolina. All eyes will be on Todd Gurley. He's 7,900, and Cam Newton, 6,500. The question is, can they prove they're healthy and viable? I mean, Reed, do you trust either of them in week one here?
Yeah, if you see the reports with Todd Gurley, he's been running around the field. Looks like all systems go. McVay said that he's not going to be in a snap count. I just don't trust him. I don't trust him just yet. I know you can pay up for running back, but I don't trust him in terms of this game, and especially with defensive line with Carolina, one of the best coming into this season. And Cam Newton, look, yes, I think if for GPPs you can, but with the quarterback, there's so much value out there. You want to look for 3 to 4x. I do like a stack, and we'll get to that and then later in the show with Carolina, but I'm going to fade both of these guys. Rosalie,
I mean, if you're not looking at one of these guys, who do you like?
If I'm not looking at one of those guys, I really like Goff at 6,200 and Kupp at 5,700 this week. Carolina defense is far more beatable through the air than on the ground. Gurley will have a decent game, but I'm really looking for Goff and those Rams wide receivers to go off this week.
I mean, Jeff, Gurley, Cam Newton, do you trust them? And if you don't, who else are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I think Gurley is kind of interesting. Obviously, we have to talk about DraftKings format and what you're playing. I think in the larger field GPPs, Todd Gurley's still probably trending towards under-owned, even though there was a report earlier in the week that he's not going to be on a snap count. This is a player who had massive games last year, even against good run defenses. So I do think the upside there with Todd Gurley's in play. Obviously, we don't really know exactly what kind of shape he's in. So just take that in mind. I mean, he could still not be effective like he was last year in the playoffs, or you could just see more Darrell Henderson. I agree with Rosalie. I do think the way to attack the Panthers is more through the air. And I'm looking at Cooper Kupp being back. Jared Goff was so effective in the first 5 games with a healthy Cooper Kupp, averaging 345 yards passing per game. I would more likely take a chance on Kupp or Robert Woods in this situation. Panthers secondary just not good against secondary tertiary receivers. I think Cam Newton's fine for tournaments as well. You can pair him with Curtis Samuel. They're one big play away always on those short passes. So, Gurley, Cam Newton, I'm leaning more towards Cam Newton if I'm looking for like a GPP play there.
The moment so many have been waiting for is finally here. We get our first look at the new look Browns as they host the Titans. Odell Beckham Jr. is the highest priced wide receiver. He'll cost you $8,100 on the slate, but he's been hampered by a hip injury. Rosalie, are you looking his way in week one? And if not, who do you like in this matchup?
Now, I'm not touching him. I'm hoping that Baker Mayfield will be looking his way. But for me, he's just way too expensive this week on an unknown. I mean, I want to see how the Browns implement their new toy, before I start plugging him into lineups. And this isn't the week to take a flyer on him against a pretty solid Tennessee defense. He's more expensive than a Mike Evans, as Reed mentioned before, who's in a cherry matchup against San Francisco with an implied game total of 49.5. So it's beyond me why he's so much more expensive, that Odell is so much more expensive than some of these other receivers. So I'm not touching him.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, we haven't seen him in action with Baker, just little glimpses here and there. Are you willing to, spend the money on him this week?
I kind of am, and I'm just kind of willing to go down on the ship here. I mean, look, I'm not even saying it's that good a spot. I mean, although I will say this. I mean, the way you attack the Tennessee Titans is through the air. They were bottom 10 teams in terms of limiting opposing wide receivers in fantasy points. So they have a really good run defense. They're good at limiting the running back out of the backfield, but they're not so hot at covering the wide receivers. There's no quarterbacks or DBs there that I don't think Odell Beckham can't take advantage of. And like I said, I just want to see this Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham connection. I believe in it. I believe it's going to end up in a big season. So if everyone's a little bit scared, if everyone thinks the price is big, I'm okay jumping in here. I do recognize there's a lot of unknowns, but Odell Beckham, lower ownership, such a talent. We know he can just smash slates when he goes off. I'm kind of in this week on Odell.
I mean, Reed, he could be a less chalky play here.
Yeah, but Jeff touted it, so it has to be wrong. No, to Jeff's point, he makes a good one in terms of, if you look at how this game is going to be composed, I'm really interested to see how this offensive line protects Baker as well. Zeitler's gone in that Odell Beckham trade, and you probably have to keep Njoku, and that's why I don't really like Njoku in this spot. I think you have to keep him in pass protect. They've been saying they want him to become a more complete tight end, a more complete player. So when you have that with Jarvis, with OBJ, I think you do. If they start him early, I think this would be a good play. But we always look at it, right? If you're paying down a quarterback, fine. I get this point that Jeff's making at $8K or above. But there's guys out there, and we talk about it. Every single other person on this slate is available. Chris Godwin's in a good spot. I'd just rather go elsewhere in terms of GPPs if I'm trying to attack this game, as opposed to, because Higgins, we know that connection, right, in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield and Higgins. So I like the sentiment, Jeff, but I'm going to disagree with you.
The Chiefs will take on Jacksonville in Week 1, a good test for their high-powered offense. Everyone will be looking to see if Patrick Mahomes can repeat his performance from last year. But do you like him in Week 1, Jeff? And if not, who do you like in this game?
I mean, I always like Patrick Mahomes. It's a little bit of a similar story with Odell Beckham. I mean, you feel like this is a spot where people are just going to kind of gravitate off him because of the matchup in Jacksonville. Jacksonville does have a top 5 defense. There's no denying it. It's not the greatest matchup. Patrick Mahomes in a matchup last year didn't throw a passing touchdown. He's still at over 300 yards, though. So it really comes down to value and what you can fit in. If you go cheaper at quarterback, it just opens up so many of those top-end running backs. So for me, it's more just a DFS specific thing. I'm not really that afraid of the matchup. The Chiefs still have the highest implied team total on this slate, or one of the highest. They're right up there, number 1 or 2. So it's a good spot. They're going to score some points. It's just you can save so much money by going with a Kyler Murray or a Josh Allen, or going all the way down to Nick Foles on the other side of this game, that I just feel like from a DraftKings perspective, you don't necessarily have to pay up for them.
Reed, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because Jeff made the point to play Odell and pay up there, and he doesn't want to pay up for a guy in a team that, 21 consecutive games.
More parity at QB, Reed, okay?
21 consecutive games, this team scored 20, this offense scored 25 points or more. I mean, a quarterback, yes, you can pay down a quarterback, 9 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday, but you're talking about Patrick Mahomes here. I know he didn't go off for any touchdowns the last time these teams met, but this is one more extra year. This is Andy Reid having an entire offseason to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, I get it. Even Nick Foles, Jeff's boy Nick Foles is in a good spot in this game. But give me Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of like golf when we talk about Dustin Johnson being under 15 or under 10% owned. If Patrick Mahomes, because he's too expensive, and to what Jeff was saying, a lot of people are thinking about that, I'm going to be hammering Patrick Mahomes in terms of GPPs, because if he's at 9 to 10% ownership at what he's been able to do across this entire season, yeah, give me Patrick Mahomes here.
Rosalie, what do you think about this one? You want to take Mahomes and pay up for him?
I'm disagreeing with the guys. Maybe I'm just like looking for bargains this week or something, but I'm absolutely disagreeing with them. Yeah, you know what? If you're in season long, obviously you're playing a Patrick Mahomes, but this isn't season long. This is daily fantasy. And ultimately, the key to beating the Chiefs is keeping their offense off the field. The Jaguars know this. They have a healthy Fournette, and when he's on the field and he's healthy, he can keep the ball in the Jaguars' hands. So I think we're going to see a little bit less offensively. Hopefully DeFilippo will manage the run the way we expect him to, and will be able to manage the clock and keep that offense off the field. Like the guys said, last time these two teams met, Mahomes did not have a passing touchdown. He did have a rushing touchdown. But you know what? What we want out of Mahomes is 3 passing touchdowns a game. That's what we look for out of him. So for me, he's way too expensive for the amount of points that we'll get when we have a lot of other more upside, less, this one's not going to be chalky, but still less chalky choices at quarterback. So I'm not going with Mahomes this week.
Love when Rosalie puts the guys in their place. Good work, you three. We'll look at the spreads of these games coming up. But first, Adam Kaufman is with DK Live's Julian Edlow previewing the rest of the 1 p.m. slate from the DraftKings Kickoff Bash in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Everybody's happy to have football back. I know we are. It's week 1. Julian Edlow, Adam Kaufman. We're coming to you from the Pilsner House in Hoboken, New Jersey for DK's annual kickoff bash. Let's jump right in. We're looking at the 1 o'clock games. First one, of course, it's a gigantic spread. You got Philadelphia favored by 10.5 points against the Redskins. Who do you like?
Well, hopefully you got this one earlier because Philly wasn't a double-digit favorite. However, I just don't see a way that Philly doesn't kill Washington in this game. Washington has no offensive line. They have no receivers. Case Keenum's going to be running for his life. I like Philly. Hopefully you can get it at single digits. If you can't, I love throwing the Eagles in a money line parlay.
In fairness, they have receivers, just nobody you've actually heard of.
Correct.
Look at the Paul Richardson is the number one for that team.
Oh, yeah.
Can you name one guy after him?
Trey Quinn.
All right.
And then some guy from Penn State.
So
I forget his name.
You can't do 2, just the one. It's remarkable how little talent there is on that Washington team. So we'll see. So if you had to pick somebody, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be from the Philly side, maybe, who's a DFS play?
Philly defense, $3,600. Cash defense right there. They're going to get the sacks. They're going to hold Washington to a low total. Too simple.
Single digits on the other side?
Maybe.
Might be looking at it. All right, let's move on to our next game here. You get the Bills, the Jets. It's in New Jersey, just like us. The Jets favored by 2.5 points. Yeah, maybe we should just skip out on this and go to the game. No, both these teams are going to stink this year. What do you think in this one?
Yeah, again, this is a spread that moved. You could have Buffalo. I think they opened at +4, +3.5. That would be a spot that I would like to be on. These divisional dogs generally do well in week 1. But at this point with under 3 points, I would probably just make a play on the Jets money line. I think that it's low enough that the Jets should win this game at home against Buffalo. So again, tough game. Probably a stay away spot, honestly, in week 1, a close divisional spread. But I think the Jets money line is probably the safest play here.
Most people expect the Bills are going to be bad. Not Dolphins bad in that division necessarily, but bad. Whereas the Jets could potentially contend for a wild card spot. We know they're not going to win the division with the Patriots still around.
That's correct.
Doing what they're doing. But if you're looking at a DFS play, I don't know, Le'Veon Bell in his first game in a couple of years, who are you looking at?
I think Lev Bell's fine. I like a lot of those mid-tier running back plays. Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Chris Carson.
Why pay up?
So I don't know if I'm going to pay up for that spot. I think, again, this is a spot that I'm either looking defense or you have Devin Singletary as a cheap running back play. With LaShawn McCoy gone now, he's priced to have LaShawn McCoy in that backfield, and LaShawn McCoy is gone. So pretty good value there.
All right, I mentioned the Dolphins. They are home against the Ravens. Baltimore is actually favored by 7 points, even being on the road. So how's this one play out?
Yeah, Baltimore opened as 4.5-point favorites, and this one got mashed all the way to 7, especially once Miami was making those trades like Laramie Tunsil to Houston. That is just waving the white flag.
Tank for
we're
Tua.
Giving up on this season. We're tanking for Tua. So, again, I think Baltimore getting that half point, getting them at 6.5, that's the spot that I would want to be on. But we have a team like Philly. We have a team like Baltimore. If you want to pair some of these money lines on teams that I just don't see losing these games, I think that's another good spot.
For the folks out there that are building lineups, though, from a DFS perspective, who stands out?
I keep saying defenses. Baltimore's the most expensive defense on the slate. I think they're a fine play. I would prefer to be on the Philly side as the defense that we talked about earlier.
Save just a little bit.
So I think Lamar Jackson, though, is a solid play. He's not the best passer, but those rushing yards add up. That's what you want on DraftKings.
Can score on the ground, can score in the air. He can excite us in a whole bunch of different ways. For Julian, I'm Adam. We'll talk to you again.
As we mentioned off the top of the show, we couldn't wait for the first Sunday of football, so we're asking you to show us how excited you are. Show us how you're getting ready for a shot at 500 DK dollars. Follow our Twitter handle @TheSweatDK and reply with your own photo and tell us how you'll #MakeItRain. Here's some examples of people who are making it rain. The best picture will get 500 DK dollars. We'll announce the winner later in the show. All right, now let's take a look at some inactive news right here. Vikings wide receiver Stephon Diggs is active. Ravens wide receiver Marquise Brown active here. Jets wide receiver Robbie Anderson active. Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson active. Chiefs running back LaShawn McCoy active and will play. Redskins running back Adrian Peterson is inactive. And Redskins tight end Jordan Reed is inactive. So some news for everybody there. Now the sweat obviously is back. I got a new set of analysts joining me. DK Live, Steve Buchanan, Greg Ehrenberg, and Gary and Thorne. We're playing NFL high or low. So are these spreads too high or too low for these 1 p.m. games? Plus we'll need DFS picks from each contest. Okay, Steve, Titans at Browns. Browns are 6-point favorites. Is the spread too high or too low? And give us one DFS pick from that game.
I mean, this easily could be a -7 for the Browns here. Like, just the mismatch between these two offenses is huge, in my opinion here. I don't think the Titans really have much of a chance in this game. I think their offensive line is going to struggle in this game, too, as well. So I think there's just a lot to like about the Browns here. So I would absolutely take them here. So I think it's actually a little bit too low in this spot. If you're liking the Browns here, I think their defense special teams is actually pretty enticing at 3,400. Then, of course, Nick Chubb, who we saw who just ran amok the second half of the season. You got to like him in this game too as well.
Greg, what do you think? Browns 6-point favorites. Do you agree with Steve? Think that's too low?
Yeah, it's too low for me. Also, I'm buying all the Browns hype this year. I think you're going to have a really big season. And like Steve said, not only is the Titans' offensive line probably not going to be all that good this year, I think the Browns' front seven is going to be one of the better ones in football. Myles Garrett was my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year for an article I wrote at DK Sportsbook. And then also, if we look at the offense, I think that Odell Beckham is really going to benefit from playing with a decent quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Didn't have a quarterback when he played with the Giants, and Eli Manning could throw downfield. So Beckham, I think, makes for a really good GPP play. The other thing to consider with Beckham is his ownership might be a little bit low because of the issues with the hip injury during practice last week. I'm not all that concerned about it. I think he's going to be fine. I wouldn't play him in cash games, but for GPP, I think he's the highest upside wide receiver on the slate.
Yeah, a lot of people bullish on OBJ right now. Not sure how he's going to work with Baker. Gary, and what do you think? I mean, too high, too low for the Browns, and what do you think about a DFS play from that game?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the guys. I do think it's too low. I'll be honest, generally speaking, when in doubt, bet against Marcus Mariota is kind of my go-to life saying. And I think, too, when you look at a spread this large, I know it can seem daunting, but from a game script perspective, if the Browns are able to get up early in this contest and make the Titans get out of what they want to do, which is obviously running the football and controlling the clock and controlling time of possession, that means the game is in Mariota's hands. They're going to have to throw to keep themselves in this. And if that's the start that is taken in this game, if that's the narrative we see out of the gate, I like this more and more at -6 for the Browns. And then in terms of a DFS play, I think Steve mentioned Chubb, but Chubb really is the guy to talk about. I would maybe shy away a little bit in a GPP just because I think his ownership is going to be massive. His price point is very appealing when you look at him versus some of the other running backs who are even going in like first rounds of redraft leagues this season. And that's kind of how people are comparing price points at this point in the year. But in a cash game, I just don't see how you can go against Chubb at 6'4".
All right, smaller spread here. Rams are 2-point favorites against the Panthers. Is that spread too high or too low here, Greg? And then you know the drill. DFS play, please.
Yeah, it's probably about right. If I have to side with one, it's going to be the Panthers just because I like home underdogs in week one. One thing we look at the Panthers, so much of their success has been based on recent years. How healthy is Cam Newton? Well, there's not really been time for him to get injured yet. He didn't play in the preseason. He had the whole offseason. So if there's any time Cam Newton's going to be healthy, it's going to be week one. He's didn't have any offseason surgeries like he's had in previous years, so I feel good about that. In terms of a DFS play, everybody's going to play Curtis Samuel this week. He's one of the best values at wide receiver, only 4,200. He's going to be really popular. I think he's close to a must-play in cash games. As a GPP play, I really like Todd Gurley. I don't think anybody's going to be on him. There's a lot of question marks coming off what his usage was towards the end of last season. But also, this time last year in the early going, he was a guy who was priced around 10K. He He's one of the front runners to win MVP. So there's a ton of upside there. I think there's risk also, but it wouldn't be surprising to anybody if he's the highest scoring running back on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was a machine last year towards the beginning of the year. Gary, and what do we think about this spread and a DFS play?
I think it's too low for the Rams, honestly. I think there's still a very weird public perception that the Rams are not a bad football team, but there's a weird taste in everyone's mouth from the Super Bowl, and that's understandable. They did not play well in the Super Bowl, but that's about the only game last season they didn't play well, and I think Bill Belichick had quite the hand in that particular outcome. Look, I think that the Panthers are a fine team. I think, as Greg said, Cam Newton's health is of the utmost importance, and he is healthy as far as we know. And also, they're 9-4 ATS their last 13 games at home. If you look at pretty much any metric, it favors the Panthers when they play at home versus on the road. But I just think the Rams are a better team. I think the Rams are one of the 5 best teams in all of football, and I don't think this spread quite reflects that fact. So I think they should probably be getting more points, and they're not. So I like the Rams a lot in this game. In terms of DFS, I think Greg hit it right on the head. Todd Gurley at 7-9. He's in this weird sort of like no man's land in the tiers of running back, where if you're paying up over 8,000 or if you're paying up around 8,000, you're probably not going to go for Todd Gurley. You're going to find the money to go up to McCaffrey or go up to Barkley. And people just seem to be scared away of this guy. I don't think that him not having a snap threshold means necessarily he's going to play the same workload and the same volume he was playing last season, which was almost 85-90% of the snaps. But I do think his upside remains one of the highest at the position. And if he's healthy, it's going to be week 1. So this might be the time to just throw caution to the wind and put Todd Gurley into a lineup or two.
I mean, Steve, everyone's high on Todd Gurley here. What do you think?
Not as much on Todd Gurley, but I think this is just a little too low for the Rams. Like Gary alluded to, like the public perception on the Rams is pretty much at an all-time low right now. And, you know, while Goff did have a bad Super Bowl, we did see him kind of tail off in the second half of the season. His accuracy was a very big question going on here, but Cooper Kupp's back in the mix here, and Cooper Kupp makes the Rams such a better offense. Like when he's on the field, the Rams are averaging 10.2 yards per pass attempt, 7.5 without him, and he's someone I think the Panthers are going to have a hard time covering. So from a DFS perspective, I absolutely love Cooper Kupp in this matchup here. I like the Rams to cover here. I think they'll end up taking down the Panthers. You know, so much love for the Panthers here with Christian McCaffrey, Cam Newton, but I want to see Cam Newton actually going out there and rushing, make sure he's actually over that sprained ankle. Reports are good on him. That's totally fine, but it's not like this would be the first time where reports are actually wrong about something. So I actually want to see what the eye test first here, so I'm going to side with the Rams on this one.
Falcons at Vikings. Gary, and Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Too high or too low? And then hit me with that DFS pick.
This seems just about right, but I will say it's a little too low. I would still be baited to bet the Vikings in this game if this line were 4. And I think not that they're the Rams, not that they've shown that level of ceiling or consistency, but this is another team that their perception is really tainted by their performance in November and December last year. I think the Vikings still have one of the most talented rosters in all of football. And I also just think the Falcons' deficiencies, especially on defense, I know they were banged up last season and they're a little bit healthier coming into week 1, but when you look at DVOA, we're talking about the 31st ranked defense in 2018 versus the 4th ranked defense. I mean, the Vikings, for everything that went wrong for them in 2018, still put together a very, very elite defensive unit. And I think that if I have to pick something to trust, it is that Vikings defense. So I like them in this contest. And I would also say for my DFS angle, I like Adam Thielen. He's someone who people have been a little bit down on as well, as he kind of tapered off towards the second half of 2018. But this is really about Stephon Diggs. I mean, when Diggs is not at 100%, we've just seen diminished returns each and every time that scenario has played out, and that's meant good things for Adam Thielen. So even with the Vikings looking to run the ball a little bit more, I still think Adam Thielen's in line for a pretty good day at that mid-tier 6-8 price point.
Steve, Vikings 3.5-point favorites. Too high or too low?
I'm actually going with the underdogs here. I like the Falcons here, so obviously it's too high. I think the Falcons can pull off the upset here. I just like the matchup so much for Julio Jones against Xavier Howard. Like, we have seen him get burned repeatedly. Last year was a really bad year for him. He was one of the worst ranked cornerbacks according to Pro Football Focus. And then we looked at even the preseason. He looked awful in the preseason. So now we got a happy Julio Jones, rich Julio Jones, going in this matchup here. We also, I think we kind of underrate Matt Ryan. He had a really good year last year. I think this Vikings defense is a little bit overrated. I think the Falcons can actually take this one here. So Julio Jones, of the most expensive wide receivers, he's the one I'm going to be looking at here, and I have him, across the board here. I think he makes a lot of sense in this game.
Greg, where do you sit on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to side with the Falcons side as well. I have a lot of concerns about the health of Stephon Diggs. Like Garion said, in the past, in games where Diggs has been on the injury report, even if he's ended up playing, he's generally not been effective in those games. So that means they could end up doubling Adam Thielen potentially if it's a limited Diggs. And both of these teams, I think, are really good bounce-back candidates. I think both should be playoff teams this season. Falcons offense, I think, is really good. I think it's going to be one of the top overall DFS offenses. As an individual DFS pick, this is a really good spot for Dalvin Cook. The number one weakness of the Falcons defense has been against pass-catching running backs. That's something Dalvin Cook could do really well. He's at a modest price point, and in that mid-range, I think he makes for, I wouldn't necessarily call him a pivot off of Nick Chubb because I think both of them are going to be popular. But Garion earlier said that he really likes Chubb. I like Cook a little bit more because of the receiving upside in this matchup.
Great work, you three. We'll be back in a bit to chase or fade some DFS hot takes. But right now, here's Adam Kaufman with Mike Francesa and his takes on the NFC East.
Which team will surprise people this year?
I think Jacksonville will bounce back and have a good year, could even have a winning year, could even win that division if they get anything out of the offense. I think the Vikings will bounce back, look for a big year out of Dalvin Cook. I think this is now or never for Minnesota. I'm picking Minnesota to win that division. And the other team is Pittsburgh. I think that Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Jacksonville will all be better than people think.
How about a team that will disappoint people this season? If you got more than one, feel free.
Chargers. Rams are a possibility if they don't get off to a fast start. They have a lot of work to do mending mentally what happened in that Super Bowl, especially with the quarterback. If they get off to a sluggish start, they could have a very tough year, meaning that a tough year for them will be struggling to make the playoffs. Everyone expects them to win 12 or 13 games. They could struggle and be in the 9-10 area if they don't get off to a fast start.
It's easy to guess in September. We'll see who's right, obviously, when we get toward the playoffs. But who's your Super Bowl matchup as you look at it right now, and who's your winner?
Two teams that are the best teams in the league, Kansas City and New Orleans. I think it's Kansas City's year. This is it for Andy. If Andy doesn't win the Super Bowl this year, and he's a friend of mine, he will never win the Super Bowl. This is it. He should have won it last year. He should have beat the Pats. He had them beat except for an obvious offsides call. And he would have won the Super Bowl. I have no question. I have not even a doubt in my mind they would have won the Super Bowl. They were the best team, and I think they're the best team this year. I think the Saints have the best personnel in the NFC. I think it's Kansas City over New Orleans.
The Eagles should have their way with the Redskins. You think this is going to be a blowout?
Yeah, blowout.
Just ugly? Who's your top performer from it?
Both wide receivers have big games.
Ezekiel Elliott back. Holdout is over. Cowboys full strength at home against the Giants in their routine kickoff game they play. The G-men very thin on offense. Is it time to celebrate in the Big D for Dallas? What do you think in game one?
Yeah, this is a very hard game to figure. I don't know. I tell you right now, Giant offense is going to surprise you. They're going to run it well. Their offensive line is going to be a plus, and Ingram's going to be a big force at tight end. Giants will look good on offense. I'm worried about the defense. I think Cowboys win a close game. I think the Giants will play well, and I think they'll get beat in the fourth quarter in a close game.
Jets are favored to beat the Bills, like most everybody will be this year. It's the first game for Le'Veon Bell after not playing effectively in a couple of years. What should we expect?
Bills are better than you think. Very, very close game. Watch the Jets. I'm worried about their place kicker. I don't know that they have one. Don't be surprised this game comes down to a field goal. The games here are usually very, very close with the Jets and the Bills. I think it's a game that goes right to the wire. Jets have a kick to win it. Does the kick go in or does it miss? I don't know. I think they'll have a kick to win the game. We'll see if it goes in or out.
Welcome to the first Sunday edition of DraftKings' The Sweat for the 2019 NFL season. I'm Jessie Coffield, and we'll have you covered with all the news and strategy you need with analysis on top DFS and Sportsbook plays. All right, let's bring in some special guests right now. We're going to do a new segment here. So we're going to start with Gavin Mercado, Sportsbook Manager at DraftKings Sportsbook at Del Lago, Hal Tendler, Sportsbook Manager at Resorts Atlantic City, and Johnny Avello, Director of Race and Sportsbook at DraftKings. So you're all here for hitting the books, gentlemen. We're getting an on-the-ground view of what's happening at DraftKings Sportsbooks around the country. So Gavin, let's start with you. Which teams are getting the most action in moving lines?
So it's opening week down here, and we're based in New York, right? So we got the New York Jets. They're playing the Buffalo Bills, two local teams. Seeing a lot of blue down here representing the Bills, a lot of green representing the Jets. It seems like most of the money is going on in that game for me.
Johnny, tell me about it.
Yeah, you know, the Eagles is certainly going to be the popular choice in the Jersey area. That line moved from 8 to 10. The total dropped from 46.5 to 44. Yeah, with the Eagles beating the Redskins both meetings last year, you look at both teams. The Eagles look like a team might be primed to go to, the big game at the end of the year, and the Redskins look like they're going nowhere. So a lot of support early for the Eagles this opening of weekend.
Hal, which teams are getting the most action in moving lines?
Well, just like Johnny said, I'm in Philadelphia country, South Jersey, and everybody's wearing green here. It's actually opened at 8, like Johnny said. We're up to almost 10.5. It's with Eagles. A lot of prop bets with Carson Wentz at 10-1 to win the MVP. So it's all Eagles down here.
Gavin, what's the biggest bet you've seen so far, either total cash or most legs on a parlay?
Well, I'll tell you the funnest one I've seen so far. So we had a gentleman come in here. He threw about $400 on a 6-leg parlay. He ended up hitting it for $25,000. I'm a big believer in those, like, you walk in here with a penny and a dream stories. And to see somebody do that, it was kind of nice to see. But we got all these guys coming in here, betting 12-leg parlays to win the $100,000. And it's kind of like playing the lotto at the end of the day. It's that one in a million chance to happen, and I love to hear those stories, and I hope somebody does hit it at the end of the day.
Hal, what about you?
Right now, so far, we have a big 3-team parlay. I bet $5,000. Of course, she has the Eagles in there with the money line, Baltimore Ravens with the Seattle Seahawks. And a lot of teasers coming in with the Eagles and San Diego Chargers right now.
Johnny, biggest bet you've seen so far?
Well, I'm looking across all networks, so I'll speak on the straight bet side. Multiple 5-figure bets. We had a guy deposit some money. It looks like we're going to get some 6-figure bets. So action robust for the first week.
Okay, Gavin, what have been the popular prop bets?
I think anything that involves the Buffalo Bills down here. I mean, we're only an hour outside of Buffalo, and it seems like these guys, there's a lot of blue. All right, there's a lot of green, but there's a lot more blue, and it seems like, the Josh Allens and the running back props are definitely pretty popular right now.
Bills Mafia out in force. Hal, what are you seeing?
Well, we're seeing a lot of Carson Wentz for MVP at 10-1. That was a big one. Some guy made a nice bet today that Andy Dalton would not throw more than 1.5 touchdowns, laying minus 134. That was now the blue we saw.
Wow. Johnny, what about you?
Well, I see the brain booster in Jersey certainly attracting some money, and why wouldn't it? Will either the Jets, the Giants, or the Eagles score a touchdown? That is a no-brainer. The other things are getting good money, or the first player to score a touchdown. We had that up for every single game. And Hal was speaking about money coming in on the futures. I noticed that the Eagles and Giants being bet this morning, just like they've been bet for the last couple of months. So it's not stopping before the kickoff time this morning.
A lot of exciting stuff going on, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here on The Sweat. Stephen Reed will join me to chase or fade some DFS hot takes. But first, here's the Week 1 edition of Levitan's Leverage.
Finally, football is back, and guess what? So are we. Adam Kaufman with Adam Levitan. It's Levitan's Leverage, Week 1 edition. It's good to see you, buddy.
Pleasure is always on this side of the webcam, my friend.
Well, you're too kind. Flattery will get you everywhere. Let's start with Dalvin Cook, all right? The Vikings back home against the Falcons. Tremendous matchup, 6K to roster him. Atlanta gave up more DK points per game to running backs than anyone else last year. So, no-brainer?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Vikings want to play is 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and run the ball a ton with Dalvin Cook. And I think they've been underwhelmed by backup Alexander Mattison. And I think Dalvin Cook, 1 year further removed from the ACL, gives them more confidence to go out there and really run Dalvin Cook into the ground. So as you mentioned, the matchup could not be much better home against Atlanta. And then you have a really talented player in Dalvin Cook. You have the right coaching philosophy that Mike Zimmer wants to use for running backs. And you also have just a really good 3-down and goal line skill set for Dalvin Cook. And he's also really cheap relative to that kind of volume usage on DraftKings. So, yeah.
A guy who's just a tick more expensive, you got Chris Godwin, $6,200. He's finally got a full-time shot for the Bucs against a Niners D that really struggled with slot receivers last year. So how do you suppose that Bruce Arians is going to deploy him to make this an advantageous spot?
Yeah, and people are going to say that Chris Godwin is too expensive at $6,200. I don't think that's the case. I mean, obviously Deshaun Jackson is gone, Adam Humphries is gone, Bruce Arians is in as the coordinator, and they're using him similar to the way that Bruce Arians previously used Larry Fitzgerald, previously used Hines Ward, which means in the slot in 3 wide sets, out wide in 2 wide receiver sets. Then he also gets to face San Francisco, who really struggles with the cornerback position outside of Richard Sherman. So I do not think that Chris Godwin is too expensive on this slate.
Tell you a good value spot if you want to pay up elsewhere. That's Evan Ingram. He's in Dallas, only $4,800. He should see plenty of targets from Eli Manning with the Giants thin at receiver. The tight end, he put up big numbers when Odell Beckham Jr. was out. Now, of course, OBJ is gone. So what do you expect?
Yeah, not only is OBJ gone, but Golden Tate, who they signed to do something to replace OBJ, is suspended for this game. So they're going in really thin with pass catchers. I think Ingram, Saquon Barkley, and Sterling Shepard will handle a majority of Eli Manning's targets. And this is a game where I expect the Giants to be trailing a lot. Evan Ingram is a baller, man. Total freak athlete. And as you mentioned, when Odell has been down, he's made the most of his opportunities. So, yeah, I think Evan Ingram is around the cheapest that we'll see him for much of the year.
Football season's here, Levy, and that box is still there, too. Can you at least tell me it's empty at this point? Have you built the truck?
I wish I could tell you it was empty.
Your poor kids. Adam Levitan's Leverage. Thanks, bud.
As promised, the sweat is back. I'm about to turn this over to 2 people. We'll see how that goes. But first, let's get an update on inactives here. Vikings wide receiver Stephon Diggs is active. Ravens wide receiver Marquise Brown is active. Jets wide receiver Robbie Anderson active. Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson active. Chiefs running back LaShawn McCoy active and will play. Redskins running back Adrian Peterson is inactive. Redskins tight end Jordan Reed is inactive. Now, as promised, the part of the show where I get to take a break and we let Steve Buchanan and Reed Fowler take over and debate some of their hottest DFS takes for week 1. So take it away, guys.
All right, so this is going to be an interesting segment here because I think we both have a couple of hot takes. I can't wait to read the comment section of that, so just keep it running. Keep it going, baby. So we both have 2 hot takes we're going to get here, so I'm going to start with mine here. I think Danny Amendola, 3,600, is actually going to be one of the best values on this slate. So let me explain why, because I already know you're about to explode. I can see it. So here's the thing with Danny Amendola, okay? So with the Lions now, new team, but he's with a very familiar coach with Matt Patricia. There's already some reports that he and Matt Stafford have already developed a nice rapport. We like that word, nice rapport. And here's the thing, too. Amendola is going to be playing primarily out of the slot. Going up against the Cardinals, that was actually one of the weakest areas for them defensively. Budda Baker was just getting wrecked last season in the slot against slot receivers here. Danny Amendola, someone that's going to carry almost no ownership. I think he actually might be a sneaky play today.
Well, I appreciate attacking this game because I do think it is a game ripe for production. But give me Marvin Jones instead of Danny Amendola.
Chalky.
Right? Because look, he's south of 30, so he's not that old. He kind of thinks because he's always injured. But you talked about that secondary, and so that's where that's where I'm chasing your explanation. That secondary without Patrick Peterson is suspended for the first 6 games. Robert Alford on the IR. This defensive line, maybe they got some guys like Chandler Jones and Terrell Suggs, but I really don't think so. I think Marvin Jones, when all of that chalk is probably going to go to Kenny Golladay, I think Marvin Jones is a better play. A little bit more expensive than Danny Amendola, but a better play in that situation. Now let's go to mine, because mine is a heaps better. Miles Sanders will finish as an RB2 this season, and here's, or not this season, maybe. Wow. But this game, and here's why. If you look at Jordan Howard, they brought him in before the draft as sort of an insurance play, right? Yep. If we look at his yards per carry, which is not necessarily the best stat to look at, but yards per carry from when he started in his rookie season has precipitously fallen. Good word. Good like word. That word here. Precipitously fallen from 5.2 down to like 3.6 on the same amount of carries. Miles Sanders, we like this game too. A high implied game total of over 10 points. Philadelphia is favored by Miles Sanders. If he gets around that 15 to 14 carries, look, and the Eagles have rushed for around 30 attempts over the last two meetings against Washington last season. If he gets that 13 to 14 and breaks one off, a lot of that hype of preseason has been for Miles Sanders, RB2 this week.
You know who else had a lot of hype? David Montgomery. How did that go for all you people out there?
Apples and
Didn't
oranges.
go to, oh, come on. Here's the thing. I hate attacking the Philly running back group. There's like 9 of them, I think, at this point. Not confirmed, but that's what it just kind of feels like. There's so many of these guys here. Sanders, for the rest of the season, fine. I can get it here, but it's just taking those guys so early here. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, there's so much value at running back today that I don't feel like you need to go with Sanders. Look, Jordan Howard is with the team now. Howard was one of those guys. I know. He was boom or bust. If he scored a touchdown, great. Everything's great. If he didn't, everybody was angry. I think this is one of those games where they start using Howard at the goal line. I think that's kind of what they brought him in for here. Sanders is a nice play. I don't have any problem with that, but not your best take. I'll give you a good take here. Get ready for this one. The San Francisco 49ers, their defense, going up against the Bucs, which is potential to be a shootout. I think the 49ers don't even end up in negative fantasy points. I actually think they have some pretty good upside for today, and here's why. Just because it's going to be a shootout doesn't mean you can't use these defenses. Well, no, the football games are going to have all these scores. We know that. But what the Bucs do, they are susceptible, I didn't say it as well, to turnovers. That offensive line is a joke. Even with the new weapons that they have, they can go with turnovers. Winston, we like him a lot, but he can turn over the ball plenty. So I think the 49ers, pretty much at the basement price. They're certainly not going to have any ownership because of how low they are and the matchup, but I think that could actually surprise today.
Where you make some salient points, again, good word.
Good one.
We're learning everything here, is that defense for the San Francisco 49ers, they made some moves on the front seven.
They did.
Right, so they bring in Marsh, right, because they had to cut some people and then where he was before. And if you just look at this defense, yes, and this game, if we're projecting this game to be high scoring, who's going to run the ball for Tampa Bay? Dar Ogunbowale, not Rodney Barber, but Peyton Barber. like, come on. Like, this is how I'm flustered in this take. I get it. I see where you're going with that. But if you just look at Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston against this team last year, over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Probably the one and only game they didn't have any turnovers. Impressive. There's so much value, man. We talked about it. The Lions defense. There's so much value on this slate. I don't think you have to really bank on San Francisco in this high-scoring game and going east. So this is the first time we get a west-east potentially.
Come on. It's week 1.
Come on. It's California, so they might be sleeping still. But look, I'd just rather go elsewhere for my defense. My second take.
Let's hear it.
An almost retired tight end.
Here we go.
34 years old, lower body injury, coming off of potentially one of his worst seasons. Greg Olsen will finish as a tight end 1, and here's why.
Today?
Today.
Oh, okay.
Today. Okay, Cam Newton's shoulder, yes, got it. He's fine. Right foot, yes, he's fine. A lot of question marks with this team. I really think when you look at the Rams secondary, we have Aqib Talib, we have Marcus Peters in contract years, so we will see how that is, right? Talib probably on his last season or close to it, or Peters looking for that second contract. I think those guys do pretty well against this pass-catching offense for the receivers. And if you look at Cam Newton, his completion percentage, highest in his career, his average depth of target was around 8 yards. Norv Turner wants this guy to get confidence early in the season. If we look back at 2016 or 2015, when Greg Olsen had his Pro Bowl year, he was targeted 8 times a game. And guess where that ADOT for Cam Newton was in his yards per target? It was 8.3 for Greg Olsen.
Amazing.
The Rams give up the 4th least of pass-catching running backs. All of these stats give me Greg Olsen, cheap option at tight end. Tight end 1 this week.
That was so weighted and unnecessary that we didn't have to put you through all that. I apologize for Reed's take there and having you have to listen to it.
This is not a PSA.
There is just so many other options I'd rather use. For once, tight end's actually not too shabby. It's week 1, week 10, good Lord. It's going to be just like a minefield out there. But, Disley over over with the Seahawks. I like that one there. Hunter Henry, the healthy Hunter Henry. Stephen A., you listening? He's going to be taking the field tonight. I just think there's so many other options to like here. If you're going to go with the Panthers, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, the Rams struggle with the deep pass. That's definitely something they can't do here. Will we see Cam Newton airing it out? To be seen. But I just think Greg Olsen, he wasn't even on my mind making lineups. He wasn't on my mind before the segment. And when we go to break, he's not going to be on my mind then either.
And that's why he'll succeed. So we're not going to go back to Jessie, actually. She's still on her break, her much-needed hiatus.
Taking a nap.
We're going to go to someone who actually knows what he's talking about. Pat Mayo on some cheap DFS options. Pat, take it away.
First, you get some Pat Mayo and Pat Mayo experience in your life, but more importantly, Chris Meany from The Athletic. So here we're going to talk about some low-price guys on DraftKings this week. Guaranteed to lose you money when you overinvest in them like I will.
I like to go bargain shopping.
All right, so well, there's a lot. You have to pay up at running back this week because I have, out of all these cheap guys, I have one running back, and I'm not even super confident in him.
Yeah.
He could be a total flameout. So Chris Thompson
is
$3,500. The game script should line up 10-point dogs if they're going to be throwing. I know Geis is the starter, but why would Chris Thompson still be on the team if he wasn't going to be their receiving back?
Yeah, and we know what Chris Carson's role is, like you said. He's the pass catcher. You figure that they're going to be down in the football game. They're going to have to throw the ball, and the Eagles can dial up some pressure. Maybe Geis struggles in his first NFL game, and Chris Thompson comes away leading the team in targets and catches. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, Singletary's down there too, right?
Yeah, Singletary is down there. He is $3,600. He's an option, but I'm going to pass away. I'm going to pass. I think, I know the fantasy community seems to be in on him. I think it's going to be a running back by committee. I think Frank Gore is going to be involved. And even maybe TJ Yeldon.
And you still have to fade Josh Allen in this entire circumstance because his fantasy value is that's the cheap stack of the week. Josh Allen, Cole Beasley, John Brown. Then you can pay up for everyone.
I love Cole Beasley, and I like the shot with John Brown, certainly in tournaments, absolutely.
Yeah.
Highest in the league last year definitely for Josh Allen, and Brown just, he didn't have those games. We know that what kind of wide receiver he is, but you don't want to take too much stock in a preseason, but I think you have to at least take into consideration what you saw between Josh Allen and Cole Beasley.
Yeah, and he's, 3,800?
Yeah, and he's 3,600.
3,600.
Even cheaper. Even better.
Even better.
So, just played, I think, under 40 snaps with Allen, and he had 8 targets, 7 catches, over 70 yards. He's in the slot, easy completions for him. They brought him in to help Josh Allen out, and he's going to utilize him.
Yeah, John Brown is definitely more volatile in the circumstance, but we saw what Robert Foster did last year with Josh Allen, and that's what John Brown is not only better than Robert Foster, Robert Foster doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
He's an unperson.
Yeah, and if he wasn't, I think I'd be sitting here talking to you about Robert Foster.
Oh, absolutely. You're still going to see some Zay Jones, some Isaiah McKenzie. Maybe Foster comes in. Who knows? There used to be this thing in Soviet Union where Stalin would have people removed from. He invented Photoshop basically.
Yeah.
So there'd be these photos of the Soviet hierarchy standing there in 1952.
Right.
And then if someone got on the ice, they removed them from the pictures. That's what happened to Robert Foster. He's just gone.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I did best ball leagues months and months ago, and I was like, yes, Robert Foster, because exactly that. He's a burner and go down the field. Josh Allen can throw it.
The other one, too, if we look to the other side of the ball, if you actually, I'm not recommending you stack the Jets-Bills game, but if you do play that triple stack, I did bring Jamison Crowder back at 4,100.
Yep.
On the other end, Robbie Anderson, not going to be 100%, will play.
Tough matchup.
Tough matchup against Tre'Davious White, and the connection that we saw between Darnold and Jamison Crowder in the preseason. I don't love Crowder for overall fantasy because he gonna get hurt at some point.
Unfortunately.
But he's not hurt right now.
He's not hurt right now. There's a lot of guys like that
we talked about Gurley.
Yeah, like Gurley and Cook and Fournette, guys that you probably passed over in drafts, but in season-long formats. But in DraftKings, these are the poster boys. These are the guys that you want to play.
So I have 2 more wide receivers from the very bottom here. I have Trey Quinn at $3,400, and I have Damon Willis at $3,100. So he's going to be starting where AJ Green would start. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be Ross and Willis on the outside, Boyd in the slot. Obviously, I like Boyd the best, but he's expensive. Yeah. He's not the cheapest guy on the board. This is a situation where I have no faith in Willis, but it's a circumstance that if you need the savings, and you probably don't because we just listed off better options, but if you only had $3,000 left, I don't hate throwing him into a lineup if you're pressed.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, they're going to have to throw the football there. I like Trey Quinn a little bit more. I think it's a great call by you. It's again, I just like these slot guys, right? They're going to have a role. Albert Wilson in Miami's going to have a role. Trey Quinn's going to have a role. Cole Beasley's going to have a role.
Crowder.
Exactly.
There's a theme.
There's a theme here
guys.
to these guys. You get the full point for the catch. Easy completions for these guys, and I think it's a better matchup against the Eagles secondary. Not as strong, I suppose, as Seattle's defense, right? Both of these teams can dial up some pressure and get after the quarterback, but they have weaknesses in their secondary, especially Philadelphia. I mean, a lot of teams exploited them last year.
Welcome back to The Sweat. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and the fantasy girl Rosalie Michaels are here for Over Under. So will these game totals and player props from the 1 p.m. games go over or under? Rosalie, start us off. Falcons at Vikings, game total of 47.5. Do you like the over or the under in this one?
This is a really, really close one for me. I think I'm going to go under just a little bit, and it simply has to do with, I don't know if I trust Kirk Cousins right now. We watched him in the preseason. He didn't look great. He went 3 for 13 in that season dress rehearsal, right? And he just didn't look that good. I think we're going to see a lot of Dalvin Cook, who I like, but I think it's not going to be as a high-scoring game as we expect. So I'm going to go under here.
Jeff, do you like the under 2 or you want to take over on this one?
I mean, these two teams definitely have the weapons to hit the over here, Jesse, but if I'm leaning towards anything, I think it's more likely that we're going to see the under here. I mean, the Vikings were 2-5 against the over as home favorites last year. They really moved to a more ball control offense after the firing of John DeFilippo. Atlanta was only 4-4 as away underdogs against the over last year. So these are two teams that are kind of trending towards that direction anyways. I really just feel like with the Falcons defense that the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to use Dalvin Cook and slow things down a bit. Even if Julio Jones goes off a bit, it's not necessarily going to lead to, like a 30-27 game. I mean, 47.5, it's a decent enough total here. I think the Vikings at home with an improved defense, I'm going to take the under here. I think there's more scenarios where we see that work out.
Titans at Browns. One player prop you can get from this game is total fantasy points for Baker Mayfield. Jeff, will he have over or under 21.5 fantasy points? I know you're buying in on this new look Browns team.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over here for sure. I just really feel like with the addition of Todd Monken as OC and Odell Beckham, obviously, in the offseason, and just an improved atmosphere with the team, I feel like you're going to see this hit over more times than not with Baker. He did hit this in 4 of his last 7 games anyways, the over last year, going back, obviously working under Freddie Kitchens there the last half of the season. You really saw Baker Mayfield improve. And again, I mentioned this off the top. I mean, the Titans have a pretty good run defense. They do play at a little bit slower pace, but their secondary is very susceptible, in my opinion, especially to a guy like Odell Beckham. So I'm expecting that duo to get off to a big start. I'm expecting Baker Mayfield to put up more than 21 fantasy points.
Rosalie, what do you think? A lot of people a little bullish on OBJ and Baker. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Jeff's buying into the hype, and I just need to see a little bit more before I see. I do trust in Freddie Kitchens. I like him a lot. I really wanted him in Arizona to become the new head coach here, but you're looking at Baker, and yeah, last year was his rookie year, but he averaged 19 fantasy points a game, and he's still learning. He's still coming together. I'm not trusting this Browns offense just yet. I want to see what they start to do with those new weapons and how they put it all together. That Tennessee defense is good. They're really good. Vrabel knows what he's doing. So I don't think he gets to 21.5. I think we're going to see a good amount of Chubb and wow. Gonna see a good amount of Chubb. And but I'm gonna go under on it. I'm gonna disagree with Chubb.
Okay, Chiefs at Jaguars, game total of 55.5. Do you like the over or under, Rosalie? I mean, we know that the Chiefs have an incredible offense, but the Jags are a top 5 defense.
Yeah, normally you just guess that any Chiefs game is going to go over 55.5 points. That's just the way it goes. But the Jaguars defense, everybody knows how good they are. And as I said earlier in the show, I really do think that they're going to try to control the clock because that's what you have to do against the Chiefs. Keep the Chiefs offense off the field. So I think they're going to try to do that and keep the Chiefs offense off the field. I think they go under 55.5 here.
Jeff, 55.5 over or under?
Well, I think the official total is actually 49 or 49.5 right now. That might be a typo. I can talk to both points, though. I'd actually take the over here, especially if it's 49.5 or even hovering around 50. I know this line opened at 52. I do believe it's gone down since then, but I'm still on the over. Look, Kansas City, they just put so much pressure on their opponents. The over hit in 3 out of their 4 away matchups when they were away favorites last year. This is just a team that plays at a fast pace, puts pressure on their opponent, and then you look at it. Really comes down to what's going on the other side. Normally, under circumstances last year with Blake Bortles, I'd be much more hesitant to take the over here. But with Nick Foles, new offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo, I just mentioned, I feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be much more effective, just a little bit more efficient, and that's going to lead to the overhitting. So I see this total dropping, but I'm still bullish here. I really do feel like this is going to be more of a 30-27 type of game.
Jeff, Rams at Panthers. Christian McCaffrey's total rushing / receiving yards is set at 118.5. Over or under?
It's hard for me to bet the under against Christian McCaffrey whenever you're getting a number. It's only 120 yards for Christian McCaffrey, which sounds ridiculous because it is quite a few, but he's just locked into such a workhorse role. I mean, the Panthers have nobody behind him. No more C.J. Anderson there from the start of last year. They don't even have Cam Artis-Payne there anymore. I mean, he is the man. Cam Newton aging a little bit. We saw McCaffrey's red zone touches go up. And the Rams are an okay defense. They're about middle of the road guarding against the running back position last year. They did allow 12 rushing touchdowns, but it's not a matchup that I don't think Christian McCaffrey can exploit eventually. We know the carries are there. Even if he doesn't get over this massively, I'd still take the over. I still feel like 120, 130 yards, assuming everything goes to plan. There's no injuries or he has to sit out a few snaps. I feel like it's a pretty good chance the over is going to hit here.
Rosalie, what do you think?
Boy, it really is the beginning of the season because Jeff is so optimistic about everything. I'm usually the optimist, but I'm more pessimistic here. Yeah, you know what? We all know that Christian McCaffrey is the Carolina Panthers offense, right? But so does everybody else. So do the defenses, especially Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips has the Panthers number. Look at what they did, what he did as the Denver defensive coordinator in that Super Bowl. Yeah, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey then, but they are absolutely going to stack the box here. And if you look at what Christian McCaffrey did last year, he still averaged 122.8 all-purpose yards last year per game, right? So 118.5, that's a lot against a really, really, really good defense. So I'm going under. Sorry, Jeff.
We'd like to say goodbye to our viewers over on News 12 Long Island who's signing off, but the sweat isn't over yet. We'll keep this thing going until 1 p.m. And if you'd like to see more of the show, head to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or as always, the DK Live app. Now let's take a look at some viewer questions with Rosalie and Jeff here, guys. Hold on, let me grab some of these people. Facebook, Justin Anderson, DJ Moore or Duke Johnson flex, Jeff?
I would go with DJ Moore. I'm just not sold on Duke Johnson. The Houston Texans just didn't use the running back position a ton in PPR last year, and the Saints have a really good rush defense. So I know there's probably going to be some volume, but I'd still go DJ Moore.
Rosalie, Dom Foreman from Facebook says, where's everybody at on Chris Godwin?
Oh, I love Godwin. I think everybody loves Godwin. Godwin. You know what? Bruce Arians said that the kid is going to get 100 receptions this year. They've got a fantastic matchup this week against San Francisco. Yeah, I plug him in everywhere.
Okay, from YouTube, Marcus Wagler asks Matt Breida or D.D. Westbrook in the flex, Jeff?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Assuming it's full PPR, I'd probably lean D.D. Westbrook. I mean, he was targeted so heavily, even just in Nick Foles' limited snaps. I do kind of like Matt Breida, though, but the snap count there and the touches we still just really don't know. I think D.D. Westbrook is much more of a sure thing, and I am expecting that game to be a shootout, so I'd go Westbrook.
Another YouTube question, Jerry Bagshaw asks, this is half-point PPR, Rosalie, so Cortland Sutton, Jordan Howard, or Devin Singletary?
Half point PPR. Devin Singletary, I don't like. I don't know what that breakdown's going to be, especially I think he's going to be more of a true running back as opposed to the pass catching back with both Yeldon and Frank Gore there. I think you got to go Cortland Sutton here. Denver against Oakland, I like that matchup as far as the passing game is concerned. And so I think Cortland Sutton is your best bet. Jordan Howard, they just said that Miles will have some touches, and so again, that's a little iffy for me as well. Cortland Sutton has a lot of talent. He can go up and get the ball, and I think Flacco can still get it to him, although I'm mad on Flacco.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeff and Rosalie. The Sweat will be back to take a look at the 4 p.m. games after we toss it to Adam Kaufman and Julian Edlow, looking at the rest of the 1 p.m. games from the DraftKings Kickoff Bash in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Inside the Pilsner House, we are here for DK's annual kickoff bash. We're excited. We talked about some 1 o'clock games a little bit earlier, Jules. We're going to talk about those again, except this time we are going to do some over-unders, some player props, have some fun with this stuff, okay? So Redskins-Eagles, 44.5 points, over-under. How's it play out?
I would lean with the under here, but you know what I feel a lot more comfortable with? We talked about how bad Washington is in that first segment. Why not just focus on that side of things and go with the Washington team total under? We know that Washington's not going to score in this game. The Eagles have a really good offense. We'll find out what Washington's defense is. But the one thing that I feel the most comfortable with going into this game is that the Redskins offense sucks. So let's focus on that. Under. Team total.
Well, there aren't a lot of options, obviously, offensively for Case Keenum. That being said, that is a guy that kind of jumps out at you as a player prop.
Sticking with the downward trend for Washington here. 244.5 passing yards. I just think Washington has one of the worst offensive lines in football. Their receivers, Paul Richardson, number 1, Trey Quinn, number 2. These guys aren't very good. I see Case Keenum running around for his life, not having many pass catchers, and Jordan Reed is not expected to play with that concussion. Surprise, surprise, Jordan Reed is hurt already. Case Keenum, no targets, and the Philly D-line is going to be chasing after him all day.
Yeah, it may as well be Julian Edlow, receiver number 3.
I would do a decent job. Julian Edelman's pretty good. We're obviously very closely related.
Yeah, well, similar names, I guess.
Yeah.
245, that number of yards. Keenum did clear it half the time last year, 8 out of 16
Different
games.
teams.
Different team, different offense, a lot more talent.
Doesn't matter.
Around him, nothing. All right, how about on
Thanks
the other
for the
side?
On the other side here, Miles Sanders, 37.5 rushing yards. Philly does have a weird little collection of running backs, but they want to see what they have in the rookie here, I think. And if they're up double digits in the second half, why not give Sanders 10 or so carries? This number is really low at 37.5.
Rookie out of Penn State. We'll see what he's able to do. I can't believe this guy compared himself to Julian Edelman and then made fun of me. All right, Bills-Jets, 40.5. Not a lot of points expected.
Again, low-scoring game. These numbers are so low. I don't know if I would make a play on the total. I think I mentioned that I like the Jets side. I think that's the safer side. But, yeah, the divisional game, week 1, we saw that Thursday night football game, how rusty it was. Ugly.
Maybe helps to play in the preseason a little bit.
Yeah, leaning under here.
Okay, how about a player prop?
So Devin Singletary, now that LaShawn McCoy is traded, we can take advantage of his DFS price. But the other thing, his rushing prop's only 26.5 yards. I know Frank Gore is nearly double that. Frank Gore is always around. He's a thorn in everyone's side.
He's not going anywhere. He's playing forever.
But if Singletary can just get enough carries to get 26.5 yards, that could be 5-6 carries to get that number. I think that's a pretty good prop.
3rd-round pick out of FAU. Hopefully actually has an opportunity. So the last one we're going to talk about, you talked about that last game being one of the lower over-unders on the board. This is
now we have
the lowest. Yeah, Ravens-Dolphins, only 40 points expected in this game. What do you think?
So again, like we talked about Washington, Baltimore should be pretty good. I don't know if this game is going to land over or under 40 points, but how about we focus on Miami? This total opened at like 37.5 and has been moving up. If we can get that Miami team total anywhere around like 17...
It's a team that doesn't want to win, though.
I don't know. Miami doesn't want to win. Are they going to score more than 17 points? Probably not, even though they're at home. And both teams, Baltimore's a running team now with Mark Ingram. Lamar Jackson loves to run the ball. That just seems like a spot that we can focus on Miami, take the team total under.
Of course, it doesn't really matter what the front office wants, right? It's player pride. The guys aren't going out there looking to lose the game. It's just not a whole lot of talent that they have to work with. You mentioned Lamar Jackson. What do you expect from him?
I expect Lamar Jackson to have a very good game. I think that his rushing prop and over there could be in play. He could rush one in. But in terms of the passing numbers, he needs 180 yards to go over his player prop. I like taking the under there, especially with Baltimore as a big favorite. Mark Ingram and these Baltimore running backs should be getting a lot of carries in the second half if Baltimore has the lead. I just don't see Lamar Jackson being good enough to get those yards passing or have the opportunities to get over 180.
Yeah, Jackson looking at him last year, and obviously he came in late after backing up Joe Flacco. Didn't clear that total often, but he did do it 2 out of his last 3 games, including the playoffs. That loss to the Chargers. So maybe, just maybe, pick up a little bit of momentum. He's going to rush for a boatload of yards as well. Should be fun. Julian Edlow, Adam Kaufman, we're having fun here at DK Kickoff Bash. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield here with DK Live's Gary and Thorne and Greg Ehrenberg to chase or fade the following statements about today's 4 p.m. games. Gary, Bengals and Seahawks. Seattle is a 9.5-point home favorite. Chase or fade that they cover the spread?
I'm going to fade this. And look, I know it's hard to back the Bengals at this point. I've gone on record saying that Bengals-Dolphins Week 16 is going to be the Tua Bowl. But this is a really big number for a game that I just see being really, really slow-paced, with the clock just continuously moving. Seattle, we already know what their inclination is on offense. They want to run the football. They want to run it on first down. They want to run it on second down. Heck, why not even run it on third down when the opportunity presents itself? And they also were the 7th slowest paced offense in the NFL last season. I just see a lot of long drives eating clock. And the less possessions you have in a game, the less opportunity to score points, the smaller margin for error. And in that sense, I just think this is too big a number.
Greg, 9.5, too big a number for you?
Well, first, I like that Garen's looking ahead to the Bengals-Dolphins matchup at the end of the season. It's the only Dolphins fan bias for the entire season. So that end of the season game for the top draft pick that's going to be a great one. For this game, I'm going to side with the Seahawks. I think the Bengals are in trouble this season. The injury to A.J. Green, I think, is going to be really detrimental to them for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously they don't have A.J. Green anymore. Then the other thing also is that Tyler Boyd had a breakout season last year, but he was way less effective in the games that A.J. Green didn't play. So now we're in a situation where the Seahawks pass defense is going to be able to focus in on Tyler Boyd. I think it's really going to take down the Bengals passing game. I think the Seahawks could get ahead early. I don't think that the Bengals are going to be able to play catch up and be able to get back into it. So I just think it's going to be a lot of Seahawks running the clock out late with Chris Carson.
Looking at Colts Chargers, Melvin Gordon is saying he won't report until at least week 6. So it's the Eckler and Jackson show. Eckler has a rushing total prop set at 52.5, while Jackson is at 40.5. Greg, chase or fade that both of these guys go over?
It seems unlikely to me that both of them would go over. I think it seems more likely that one of them's going to have a really good game and the other one's going to have kind of like a not so great or mediocre game. For a DFS purpose, I think it makes a lot of sense to pivot off of Eckler and roster Jackson. Jackson's a lot cheaper. Eckler's also going to be a lot more popular since he's listed as the starting running back. And the other thing, too, is we just don't know what the snap share is going to look like. Last year, towards the end of the season, I think it was week 13 and 14, Melvin Gordon was out and Eckler and Jackson were both healthy. One game, it was Jackson had a big game and Eckler dudded. The other game, Eckler had a good game and Jackson dudded. So it's kind of iffy. We don't know which one is going to be good, which one's going to be bad. So I'll go with the cheaper and lower ownership of Jackson.
Gary, and do you agree they both can't do it, and which one would you take?
Yeah, I would steer clear of saying both are going to get over that number. But I'm going to differ from Greg here. I do like Austin Eckler. And while I agree that it's somewhat difficult to say on a week-to-week basis, Austin Eckler is going to be the number one option in the Chargers backfield, I think this week you can make that claim, considering this is a game script that favors his skill set much, much more closely than it would favor Jackson's. Indianapolis had a very stout run defense last season. They were 7th in terms of adjusted line yards. And the Chargers have incredible problems on their offensive line with Russell Okung not playing and just some of the replacement level players they have at the guard position, both guards really. But the Colts were highly susceptible to running backs in the passing game last year. They gave up an AFC high 8.8 targets per game to opposing running backs. And that is Eckler's archetype. We don't really know what Justin Jackson is yet, but it seems like not that he can't catch the football, but he's the more fundamental, rudimentary running back, where Austin Eckler is someone we've seen have big games out of the passing game. And I think that's really where these Chargers running backs are going to make their mark this week. So I'm leaning towards Eckler.
49ers and Buccaneers, Jimmy G is back, and his passing yards prop is set at 287.5 yards. Gary, and chase or fade that he goes under that total?
I'm going to chase this. And this is probably going to be a popular thought process because everyone's still so focused on Jimmy G's performance in that nationally televised preseason game in week 2 against the Broncos. I will say for posterity, he was much better in week 3. So we have seen Jimmy have a good game since coming back from that knee injury. But this is kind of for me about the Bucs. I mean, putting aside the fact Garoppolo hasn't played a real NFL game in 11 months, the Bucs, by adjusted games lost, were the most injured defense in football last season. I'm not saying they're going to be a good defense in 2019, but I think they're going to be a better defense. And to assume that a quarterback making his first start in almost a year is going to put 300 yards up on them, I think that's a little hyperbolic. So I'm going to take the under here with Jimmy G.
Greg, what do you think? Does Jimmy G go off?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Garen here. And the reason being is that I think both of these teams are going to play at higher paces this year. I think that the defenses are overall both going to be bad, even though I think the 49ers and Bucs defenses are probably both going to be improved over last season. They were both so bad last year. They're still going to be bottom 10 or so in DVOA. So I think we're going to be in a situation where these teams are going to have to try to keep up with each other. It's going to be strong passing attacks. The Bucs don't have any running game this year, so that's just going to overall increase the tempo of the game. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game. It's my favorite game to stack on the slate. There's a bunch of good value at wide receiver. I like both the quarterbacks. And also as a DFS play for Garoppolo, he's going to be way lower owned than Winston. Winston, I think, is going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate. So Garoppolo, I think, makes sense to play on the other side of the game stack, and you kind of get a little bit of leverage and a lower owned quarterback for the stack.
Greg, Giants at Cowboys. Zeke is in the fold, but he had no training camp, only Cabo workouts. So chase or fade that the Giants are in a good spot to cover the 7-point spread as underdogs.
I'm going to fade just because I think the Cowboys get ahead early, and then how are the Giants going to catch up? Like, who is Eli Manning going to throw to? Because Sterling Shepard isn't 100%. He's a banged-up thumb. Then we have Golden Tate. He's suspended right now. So the Giants, Eli's going to be able to dump off to Saquon Barkley, which he's going to have to do. He's going to be able to throw to Evan Ingram. But beyond that, I don't trust Eli Manning at this point in his career. The Cowboys are going to get ahead, and I don't think that the Giants are in a great spot to score garbage points towards the end of the game.
Gary, you chasing or fading?
I'm going to fade this too. I think Greg's right. Look, in week 1, we don't have a lot of tangible data for these teams, these actual 53-man rosters. And I think at that point, sometimes you have to just simplify things. And I think the Cowboys are a much, much, much better team than the Giants. The spread is a little high for this particular matchup. We've seen time and again the last couple seasons, but I don't really think it's that bad for what this incarnation of the Giants looks like. And just because I know Greg will enjoy it, week 15, Dolphins-Giants also has the potential to be a terrible game. So really just setting up great for the end of the season.
Let's go.
Okay, one more game, Lions and Cardinals. Kyler Murray's debut, his rushing total is set at 36.5. Gary, and chase or fade that he goes over that total against Detroit?
I'm going to chase this. I think that you're looking at a situation in Arizona where once again, they have an injured and beaten up offensive line, and that's going to mean a lot of pressure on Kyler Murray. I don't think he's going to have much of a chance to make more than his first read. And even as a rookie quarterback, I think once you get past your first read, his inclination is going to be to run and really run for his life in most scenarios. So I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to get out of the pocket just because of necessity, really. And I think that's going to lead to him getting over this number.
Greg, chase or fade?
Yeah, I'm chasing. My notes are more or less the same as Gary's. The only thing I'll add is that we have Cliff Kingsbury making his debut as an NFL coach. And what do we know about his offense? They're going to throw the ball a ton. So we're probably going to see Kyler Murray drop back 35 to 40 times. The offensive line is going to be bad. So there's going to be a lot of times where he's under pressure. He's going to be flushed out of the pocket, and he's just going to be running out of necessity. The other thing I'll say also is because of how bad the Cardinals' offensive line is, I think that the Detroit Lions defense makes for a really sneaky under-owned GPP play because they're going to have opportunities for sacks. They're going to have opportunities to force turnovers. And Murray's going to be dropping back so many times that the more times he drops back to pass, it's just more opportunities for the Lions defense to score fantasy points.
Thanks, guys. Good work. Okay, we've been telling you about the Sweat First Football Sunday sweepstakes, and we are ready to announce our winner. Here it is. This submission from Chris, who is CMay011 on Twitter. Congrats, you are the winner of $500 DK. Make sure you tune in each week on The Sweat for more chances to win. One more block to go here on the Sweat right now. We'll take a last-minute look at the 1 p.m. slate. But first, earlier this week, I had a chance to catch up with some of our football experts for a sneak preview at Sunday's primetime matchup between the Steelers and Patriots. And I'm joined now by DK Live's Steve Buchanan and Reed Fowler, looking ahead to Sunday night's showdown between the Patriots and Steelers, presented by KFC. So, Steve, who's your choice for the captain spot, fittingly renamed the Colonel's pick for this showdown?
Yeah, it's got to be Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, obviously, we'd like to know a little bit more about how the Steelers are going to deploy him in this new-looking offense here, but you just can't deny the production that he brings out. If he goes into the slot, which we would like to happen here, you'd be avoiding Stephon Gilmore. You saw just an unbelievable amount of production there, over 814 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns when in the slot. So Juju Smith-Schuster is my guy for this spot.
Reed, who's your Colonel's pick?
Yeah, it's going to be Sony Michel, so I'm going on the other side of the ball here. If you just look at the Patriots moving more towards a run heavy, we know we get Josh Gordon back. Gronkowski's not there. This team just scores a lot. They're going to be at home, right? This game is around 50 to 51 in terms of implied game total, and they're in the red zone quite a bit. If you look at last year, red zone scores, they're top 5 in the league. So Sony Michel with all that touchdown upside, even though the guy doesn't catch a lot, we should see more out of the backfield from Sony in terms of pass catching. So give me Michel.
Okay, Steve, next up, who would be a good complement to your Colonel's pick?
Yeah, so I really like Josh Gordon in this spot here. Obviously, getting back into the Patriots offense finally. He's going to see some coverage from quarterback Joe Hayden, which isn't the most ideal matchup, but we all know it only takes one good catch from Gordon to really bring back some value here. When he was with the Patriots, averaged 18 yards per reception, so always has that ability for the big plays.
Who are you taking to complement your Colonel Reed?
Jalen Samuels. He's the RB2 there in Pittsburgh, and we'll probably see this guy move across the entire positions, right? He might play in the slot, he might play in that backfield. Even though James Conner does have the lion's share of this backfield, we just know what happened to him towards the end of that season. He really deteriorated. His health really was in question. And so Jalen Samuels, if we get 10 to 15 carries, whether it be targets, touches, and receptions, this guy could really give you a boost.
That'll do it for this week's look at KFC's Sunday Night Series. Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield here with a quad box of talent. DK Live's Steve Buchanan, Reed Fowler, Jeff Ulrich, and the fantasy girl Rosalie Michaels. So close to kickoff, so we're working up a sweat, getting your last-minute takes on today's 1 p.m. slate. Steve, as we close in on kickoff, is there anyone you loved coming into today that you're pivoting off of now?
I think it might end up being Mike Evans. Like, you know, obviously he's in an unbelievable spot here against the 49ers, but once I, been thinking about it more, I think Godwin's just a way to go here in this matchup. You know, obviously the illness is not what's scaring me off as much, but there's a lot of value at wide receiver. I don't think it's actually necessary to pay all the way up for Godwin. There's so many guys you can pay down for here at this spot, so I think Evans is in a great spot. He could end up with a really good game here, but I just don't think it's necessary to spend all that money up for him here in this match.
Reed, anybody you want to pivot off of now?
Yeah, I think the Mike Evans call is good. If you just look at Hunter Henry, when you look at the Colts in that matchup, it's prime for tight ends. When you look at just defending the tight ends, the Colts one of the worst teams last year. But I really think, to Garen's point, this offensive line for the Chargers is going to be a little suspect. You might see Henry and pass protect a little bit more. I mentioned early in the show, Greg Olsen is someone that I like, but at the same time, it's when you look at just that offense, where are they going to go? Is it going to be the running backs? I think Hunter Henry might be a little less in terms of on the production side than what we anticipate, but really, really good spot.
Jeff, what about you?
I've been trying to figure out how many touches Zeke Elliott's going to get all morning, and I've finally just said I think it's better to just forget about him for week 1. I'm fine with fading Zeke this week. There's so many other RBs that are just a little bit undervalued, like David Johnson going down. Even McCaffrey is pretty easy to fit in. But I just don't think you need to spend up on Zeke Elliott this week. And if you leave him out of your lineups too and go with guys like Fournette or David Johnson or even Nick Chubb, it's going to let you unlock that value wide receiver with guys like Julio or Odell. So I guess it's Zeke Elliott for me.
Rosalie, who are you pivoting off of?
Well, I feel like I might be coming at Jeff quite a bit today, or maybe I'm just trolling him here, because I'm going with Tevin Coleman. We know how much Jeff loves Tevin Coleman. But you know what? He's 5K, and yeah, he's in that sweet matchup versus Tampa Bay. But then we all know that Breda came out on top of the depth chart. Plus, you know, when he's healthy, he is the complete back. And he's $1,000 less than Coleman. They're saying it's going to be a timeshare, but I see Breda getting the better half of those touches. And again, that matchup is fantastic. And they're about equal in efficiency, but 1K less, more upside, give me Breda.
Okay, who is your favorite value play of the day, Reed?
I have Chris Thompson in Washington. If you look at just this backfield, Chris Thompson, it really wasn't there. He was just riddled with injury last season. You have Darius Geis out there who's coming off of that ACL injury, even though it's been better in terms of how these guys come off of these injuries. It's still a little question. It's still a little, you know, I'm still a little hesitant on him. And then you have AP as a healthy scratch. P. Ryan's no longer there. Smallwood just got there, and Bryce Love's in the IR. So this is going to be a high-scoring game for Philadelphia. So I like Chris Thompson at 3,500.
Rosalie, who are you targeting for value?
I couldn't believe that Chris Carson is at $5,700. What? I mean, this is the #1 rushing offense last year against Cincinnati, who gives up 138 rushing yards a game. I think that he gets easily that. I'm going like 150 yards for rushing and some passing yards and 2 touchdowns. So Chris Carson at 5,700, gimme.
Steve, who are you looking at for value?
I'm actually really digging Delaney Walker this week. The Browns were actually one of the worst defenses in the league against tight ends last year. They gave up the 4th highest average, 15.3 last year, 7 touchdowns scored. Look, he wasn't really there last season, but that's been Marcus Mariota's security blanket. When he needs to dump off the ball, it was to Walker. So I think really no one's looking at him when you're going cheap at tight end. Hunter Henry's getting a lot of talk, and rightfully so here. But I think Walker is in a spot where people are really overlooking. He's getting older. You know, no one's getting younger. But I think he can still get it done in this matchup here.
Jeff, who are you looking at?
Yeah, trust Steve to take the 40-year-old tight end here. I'm going to go with the real value tight end. Easy E, Evan Ingram going up against Dallas. I mean, I feel like everyone is just sort of overlooking this, but the Giants have basically come out and say, hey, Evan Ingram is our feature receiver this year. He's never caught less than 4 passes in 4 games against the Cowboys in his career. Produced, 70 to 80 yards a game without Odell Beckham last year. I think this is a really, really good spot, and I think he's going to challenge for one of the top 3 tight ends. So $4,800, $2,000 discount off of guys like Kittle or Kelsey. I'm taking Evan Ingram.
Slate approved pick time. I need your lock for 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Rosalie, who you got?
My 1 p.m., Lamar Jackson versus Miami. He is going to annihilate them. On the ground, we're going to see a little bit more in the air. I like Lamar Jackson this week a lot.
Okay, Steve, who are we going with?
Yeah, for the 1 p.m. slate, I'm definitely going with Leonard Fournette. He is priced too low for the matchup. He's being priced more for the production last year. If he had a good season like he had in 2017, he's easily in the 8K range. So that is for the 1 p.m. For the 4 p.m., Dante Pettis. He's the #1 receiver over in San Francisco. He's got a really good individual matchup as well. I think this is something that's going to go overlooked, and I think he can end up surprising being the top guy in this lineup.
Reed, Slate approved.
Yeah, I mean, for the 4 p.m., let's go Matt Breida. Let's go #1 guy on the depth chart. On the depth chart there in San Francisco. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game if you just look at what he's been able to do. And Tampa Bay's defense against pass-catching running backs, absolutely atrocious. They no longer have Quan Alexander there. And the 1 p.m. game is Dalvin Cook. And when you talk about a prime spot, cheap price at $6,000 in the slate, even if he gets only 70% of the carries or workload that he should get, he's in a prime spot for this game. So Dalvin Cook as well for the 1 p.m.
Jeff, talk to me. Slate approved.
Well, I was going to go Fournette too, so I'll just agree with Steve. He brought up good points. He's just locked into a massive workload there against a defense that does not do well at stopping running backs from producing. And then for the late slate, I'm going David Johnson. I just do not know why people are afraid of the Arizona offense. This is going to be high-paced. They're going to use David Johnson in the pass game. The old DJ is going to come back this year, in my opinion. In week 1, if he's a little bit lesser owned, that's fine. I think he's in for a big game.
And Rosalie, I think we only got your 4 p.m. Do you have a 1 p.m. here?
I do. I talked about him a little bit earlier. Chris Carson, I told you all the reasons why he's the 4 p.m. lock.
Okay, let's take some last-minute viewer questions as we close in on kickoff here. All right, from Facebook, Jesse Kane wants to know, how are you guys feeling about the Colts defense, Steve?
Not that great here. I mean, they're not in the worst matchup here, but I just think there's a lot of value on the board. The Seahawks at 3,100 is one I like. The Browns at 3,400 I think is going to go overlooked too. They're in a really good spot as well, so I just don't feel it necessary to use the Colts in this spot.
Dylan Schmittler on Facebook wants to know, would a Kyler Murray, David Johnson, Kelly Golladay stack be crazy or risky, Reed?
Actually wouldn't be that bad. If you think this game is going to be high scoring and you want both sides a little bit leverage with those guys, I do think Galladay is going to be chalky. I think Kyler Murray is going to be chalky as well at that price tag. I don't mind it, but I like Marvin Jones over Galladay in that spot. But yeah, it's pretty risky.
Rosalie.
That's pretty much half my lineups, by the way, is the Galladay Kyler Murray stack. So
no one asked you, Jeff.
No, I mean, Jeff, go ahead, weigh in.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I love that stack. I think it's great. You throw in David Johnson with Kyler and Galladay on the back end. The Cardinals have no secondary. I mean, they're missing their top 2 cornerbacks. I think Galladay's
that's Jeff's entire fantasy team. Like, that's his entire team right there.
Okay. Joshua Terrell Ducksworth from Facebook. Rosalie, he wants to know Carson Wentz or Jared Goff.
Oh, I love Goff this week. Love him. Absolutely Goff. No
Okay,
doubt.
Goff it is. All right, Jamie Haycock from Facebook, Steve, or we'll go to Jeff. How about a lower end tight end?
Lower end tight end, I think Reed actually made a good point for once with Greg Olsen. I was also looking at Hunter Henry, but I think Olsen being cheaper, that's probably the way I'd go.
Steve, I heard you say you were not happy with that pick.
No, I don't like the Olsen pick at all. If you want to go like super low, Will Dissly over in the Seahawks, I think is a really good spot too. The Bengals were absolutely atrocious to opposing tight ends last season, so I like that a lot more than old man Olsen.
Over on 1.5 targets for Will Dissly.
Calm down.
Under.
We got Reed saying under. Okay, Reed, YouTube from Hat and Beard, Cooks, Woods, or Cup?
I think you got to go Cup here. Even with the ACL injury, you look at that connection, it's just so great. So give me Cup.
Rosalie, where do you sit on that one?
Yeah, I'm with Reed on that. Cup coming back from the injury, I think they're going to reestablish that connection, and of course, the matchup is great. I think I like Cooks and Woods too, but Cup is just going to have the target share.
Okay, from YouTube, David Martinez wants to know Tyler Lockett or James White in the flex, Steve.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I would, I keep flip-flopping in my mind here. I like Lockett obviously because he's a wide receiver 1 here, but the only problem with that is that it could end up being a blowout. So if you want to go with a more safer play, it would probably be James White because I think that game will be a little bit closer. I just worry about the blowout factor with Lockett. So I think White by a little smidgen. It's close.
Jeff, Tyler Lockett or James White in the flex?
Yeah, I would go Lockett. I know the Seattle might just run the ball down their throat, but Tyler Lockett's so efficient. He's so good in the red zone. I'd still lean Lockett.
Rosalie, where are you going on this one?
Yeah, I'm all in on White. They don't have a tight end there. White is going to be the de facto tight end. And Tom Brady loves him. Asked for more of him last year, and look at what we got. We got a top 10 in fantasy points per game for running backs out of James White. So I love James White, and I already talked about Seattle game's going to be a huge run game.
Reed, real quick.
I really want to disagree with Jeff, make this a clean sweep, but I'm going to be on Jeff's side. Give me Tyler Lockett. The Bengals were bad out of the slot last year. I think this guy is going to have a good game.
That is a show, folks. Enjoy your first football Sunday of the year. We will be back next Sunday, same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, taking you up until kickoff. Plus, you can watch The Sweat every weeknight at 6 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and the DraftKings app. I'm Jessie Coffield. See you next time.